in a little while. I'll put some photo. In fact, I might be able to find some photos here to put up now. For those of you that are members, get your Pinocchio images ready. Get your emojis. Actually, yeah, I'll show the. If I show the thumbnail, because it's got a picture of it. So look, see this. This is the latest court drawing of Erin. Oh, do you remember the court drawings of Erin from before? I need to put a video together of just the court sketches of Erin Patterson. It's like the Scream School of Art, isn't it? It looks. Anyway, that's the latest court drawing of Erin Patterson. She's not been taking part in this appeal process in person. She's taking part by video link. So, yeah, and this is the court image that came up, because you're not allowed to take actual photos, obviously, or there's no actual photos. Some will come out, I suppose. Oh no, because she's not even appearing in court, so the paparazzi can't try and sort of take random pictures of her in the police van or whatever. She's not appearing in court. She's still in the facility. Yeah. It's, well, they're different, aren't they? They're different. But also, I want to draw attention to the victims. The very first thing that I want to say is, this has all become about Erin, hasn't it? And, I was hoping I'd never have to speak about Erin again, but, here she is trying to appeal. So what I'm not going to say I'm not going to cover it. Obviously, I'm going to cover it. But let's not forget the victims. So let's just have a little recap about what this woman did, or what she's been convicted of doing, whatever happens in her appeal. At this moment in time, Erin Patterson is a convicted triple murderer and an attempted murderer of one person. So here, in these photos here, we have her victims, which are her extended family, aren't they? So we've got Don, her estranged husband Simon's dad, his wife Gail. They died. There won't be any more photos of them. And Heather Wilkinson, she died too. We have to remember them. I think it's like become the Erin show. It's like the Erin show, but what about these people? And Ian, he was the only person to survive. And Ian and Heather were friends of Don and Gail's. They didn't even really know Erin. They were delighted to be invited to dinner, weren't they? They were all invited to dinner at Erin's, Moneybags Erin's posh house, and Erin, who wasn't really known for her cooking, decided she was going to make beef Wellington. And what she was accused of and convicted for is she used foraged death cap mushrooms, which are lethal mushrooms. She foraged them deliberately to put in this meal to poison. And now her husband Simon was supposed to be going as well, but he didn't go in the end. But these poor people went. And to me, all these four people, like they remind me of my mum and dad. Like they're sort of naive people. They were religious people. They like to see the good in everybody. Just nice, ordinary people. She hated them in the end. And you know why she hated them? Because she felt they didn't give her due care and attention. She was angry with them because they were siding with Simon her estranged husband and their son, of course, Don and Gail's son, or trying not to get involved is probably a better way of looking at it. They were trying to be nice to Erin and Simon. And of course, Erin had 2 children with Simon. So they had their grandchildren to think about. And Erin, it came out in her messages on Facebook, which she's now saying shouldn't have been allowed to have been admitted in court. I mean, basically what Erin's saying is every bit of evidence that was bad against her should not have been allowed to have been presented in court. Anyway, we'll see how successful she is or isn't. But yeah, she foraged these mushrooms. And let's not forget how many lies Erin told. You know, she insisted initially, she never foraged for mushrooms. Never. She literally said that. We'll see her say that in a minute in an interview. Have you ever foraged for mushrooms? Never. Have you ever had a dry, what do we call them, that one of those apparatus that dries out fruit and vegetable? No, never. And then she was caught taking it to the dump the day she found out that they were all, you know, that the hospital was suspecting death cat mushroom poisoning. She was on CCTV taking the food. What do we call them? Somebody help me out. I can't remember what it's called, but the food dryer, you know, that dries out vegetables and fruit and things like that. She was caught taking it to the dump, you know, the one that she had never ever had. And then in her house, they found the instruction manual. And she said it was from years ago. You know, she had told so many lies. You know, absolute liar. That's it. Dehydrator. That's it. Quizzical. Thank you. Sorry, I've just got to put my Pinocchio up already. Oh, I'm on the wrong thing. Hang on. Right. Hang on. Yeah, I'm not on my... Yeah, get those Pinocchios up there. Because as much as Erin doesn't want to admit it, what really did for her were her own lies. She told that many lies that in the end, the jury couldn't believe a word she said. And probably if she wouldn't have told as many lies as she did. Thank you, David. If she hadn't told as many lies as she did, why can't I find my... I want my... there they are. If she hadn't told as many lies as she did, which she was exposed in all her lies, she might have had more of a chance because you know what, it was a lot of circumstantial evidence. Do you remember that the prosecution called over 50 witnesses? 50 witnesses. Because they didn't have a smoking gun. I mean, they had her lies. You know, the lies that she told them. They had the fact that she was round about where death cat mushrooms had been found. You know, her phone data showed she'd been there. She'd been on that website. Do you remember Funky Tom, who the expert in mushrooms? We had a lot of experts on. But each individual piece of evidence that was presented against Erin in itself was not enough, but it was when it was all put together like a jigsaw puzzle, combined with the lies, the absolute amount of lies that Erin had told, that's really what convicted her, wasn't it? You know, and the prosecutor was very good. Her defender, Colin Mundy, he was as good as he could be. He was working, No, he was trying to defend the indefensible, really. I think even he gave up in the end. Anyway, I have a playlist if you want to go back over the trial. We've covered this case, well, from the beginning, but the trial from the day it started, and it went on and on and on. And the only witness that was called for defense was Erin Patterson. She was the only person. No character witnesses, and thank God that Ian Wilkinson survived. I mean, he only just survived. Ian had to have a transplant. They also gave Gail and Heather, the two ladies there. Sadly, they were too ill for a transplant because these death cap mushrooms, they kill you from the inside out. And sadly, by the time they'd realised it was death cap mushroom poisoning, within a day or so, but it was, it was working on their systems, their organs were closing down. They were too ill to have a transplant. And as far as Don was concerned, they gave him a transplant, but sadly, it didn't work and he died anyway. But with Ian, it worked. Thank God Ian survived. Because if Ian wouldn't have survived, it would literally be Erin's word against everyone's. Ian let the jury know that the plates were different, that Erin lied and said she had cancer, that they all sat at the end and prayed for Erin because she said she had cancer, but she didn't have cancer. We only know all that because of Ian. Because if Ian wouldn't have survived, we wouldn't have known all about that. This woman is a horrible, horrible woman. But do you know what? She won't rest. She'll never give up. She'll exhaust all her appeals. Maybe you could say, well, should we blame her? But yeah, we should blame her because she's a psychopath. She doesn't care what harm she's inflicting on anyone else. I'll tell you what, I hope Ian is well now and will not, as this appeal process goes forward, because it can take a long time. I just hope Ian will be okay, because without Ian testifying and calling into question everything, all these horrible, the things that Erin did, it would be a much weaker case against her, just because there'd be nobody to say about the plates being different. And, that she lied about having cancer. They all prayed for her, blah, de, blah, de, blah. Anyway, so that's what we're going to talk about in this video. This is what's happening this week. Now, it's important to say, so I'm going to take my banner off because I feel like I've said thank you to everyone. And I mean it wholeheartedly. Thank you so much, especially for all my birthday wishes and everything. Right, deep breath. Right, deep breath and a vape. Now, what's important to tell you, first of all, this is not her actual appeal that is taking place. This hearing, which is supposedly going to take place over 2 days, is to decide whether there can be an appeal or not. So they're not technically not hearing the appeal itself. This is to make a decision. Can she appeal? Now, it's rare for someone to be able to appeal. I've watched so many videos about this. It's very rare in a case like this that the appeal will even be granted. So it may be that she's not granted a basis for appeal, but she's got her reasons for appealing, and that's what we're going to look at. So thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, to like this video, share if you can. Thank you to all of you who subscribed already. Those are completely free ways to support my channel. Special thank you to my members, to those who buy Ko-fi, send super stickers, PayPals, the extra ways you can help my channel. Thank you so much. Hello, you lovely lurkers. Haven't said that for a few days. I mean, it literally only has been a couple of days. It feels like forever. Thank you for watching. Hello to Replay Crew. Thank you for watching. Everyone's quite interested in this case. We've covered it extensively, haven't we? You know, and we're never going to give up on this case, just like any other case that we look into. We get invested in it. We care about Erin's victims. You know, especially for me, I think her victims need, you know, an extra special caring for, if you like, because they were elderly people, they were vulnerable. They were delirious to be, you know, they were so happy to get invited to dinner at Erin's. You know, Erin Miss Moneybags, they'd never been to her house before. It's probably quite exciting. They're just plain ordinary people, religious people. You know, like, they deserved so much better because they were good, kind people. And you know what? This bitch, she exploited their kindness. Everybody should think about me. Me. It's all about me. It's not about anybody but me. She'd already tried to kill Simon, remember? Let's not forget that allegedly, though those charges were dropped in the end because I think the prosecution thought they had a better chance of making these charges stick. She had tried to kill Simon before, tried to poison him before. He'd been in intensive care in hospital after eating food that Erin had prepared for him. This Erin, to me, I've known people like Erin. Things don't go her way. If things don't go Erin's way, she gets angry, but she's underhand with it, isn't she? Oh, you know, just look back over the playlist at the trials, what she did, the lies she told, just a little porcupine, little white lie here and there. We all tell little lies here and there. These were great big black pork pies. Do you know what I mean? Like, she even threw her own children under the bus, said that they'd been misguided or whatever, they hadn't remembered things properly. Everyone remembered things wrongly except her. That's basically what Erin said in the trial. Everybody was wrong except her, because she is Miss I know better than everybody else. I'm cleverer than everybody else, even the police. Anyway, let's come into the chat, see who's brave enough to come into the chat. I know there's a few of you in there chatting. It's good to see you all again. Hi, Sean. God, it sounds like I've been gone for 3 months. It's literally probably been 3 days. Hi, Sean. Hi, David. Hi, Kelly. So you're back home now. Hope you had a nice trip. Yeah, someone's having fun with these court pictures. I hope you're right, David. David says that Erin will fail in this appeal. Hope so. So don't forget, she's just waiting to even be granted the chance to appeal. This is not the actual appeal. Lives Unlimited. Hi, Quizzical. Yeah, dehydrator. Yeah, that's. Yeah, because that's it. Singer's in the beginning. David Erin told so many lies. When she was asked where she'd bought the mushrooms, she said she'd bought them in the Asian supermarket. Then she changed that she changed so many stories. Hi, Joanne. Well, we don't know if she's going to be allowed to appeal yet. This is what these hearings are for, to decide whether she can appeal or not. So, you know, she's not going to give up. Hey, Sarah. Yeah, I had a great birthday. Thank you. I did. I hope I haven't been what cow. Do you know what? Exactly. That's very succinct, and I agree with that completely. She is a cow. So the thing about Erin is she has got money. She's got money. And obviously, if you've got money, you've got more chance, haven't you? Because you can afford the best defence. She's got a different defence lawyer this time. She's not going with Mr. Mandy this time. I expect Colin Mandy had to go and lie down in a dark room for about 3 months after he tried to defend this one. You know, I just, who'd want to defend this woman after what she did? Who would want to? But, you know, that's what defence lawyers are for. Everyone's in, this is the democratic, fair society we live in, supposedly. Everyone's entitled to a fair defence and an appeal. But, you know, it does seem very, because they waited a long time for this case. Then you go through the case, the actual trial went on for months, a couple of months, wasn't it? It was 8 weeks at least, even more. And now they've got to go through it all again, or maybe got to go through the appeal process and maybe go through it all again. I mean, you just feel like the victims, of which, of course, Ian is the only surviving victim. But then there's the families of the ones who died, including Simon. You know, he's lost his mum and dad and his auntie and nearly his uncle. What about them? And then this. Oh, so apparently she's spending her time in prison at the moment reading Bible verses. Ah, funny that, isn't it? Reading Bible verses, crocheting, you name it, you know, just, I mean, I run up. Yes, she did, exactly. She didn't visit her victim. She got their names wrong as well. Do you remember that? When she was being interviewed, when those journalists caught her at the car, she said that, oh, I'm sorry, Ian's dead. Ian wasn't dead. It was Don who was dead. She got all their names wrong. She didn't even have the decency to remember he was dead or not, you know. And then, of course, don't forget, she went to the hospital, and as soon as she was told that they thought it was death cap mushrooms and she needed to stay in for observation, and possibly her kids as well might have been affected because they're supposedly at the leftovers, she literally left the hospital in an instant. You know, insisted on leaving. She had to go and sort her daughter's ballet bag out and sort the animals out. She's just been told that her extended family are in intensive care. One's died or on the verge of death. And she's like, oh, well, I've got to go home and sort my daughter's ballet gear out. Because what she had to do, really, of course, was go home and get rid of all the evidence, didn't she? And then there was the lies about the diarrhea and everything. She took her son to his flying lesson the next day, even though supposedly she had terrible diarrhea. She did a 9-second toilet stop. 9 seconds. I can't even go for a wee in 9 seconds. Here in my house, just literally going to the toilet. You can't do it in 9 seconds. How did she go into a bathroom in a diner or whatever it was, at a roadside stop? She was 9 seconds in the toilet with this terrible diarrhea. 9 seconds. So this is what undid Erin with the lies that she told. The jury saw right through them. Let's see what, hopefully the judge who's deciding whether she can go to appeal or not will be able to see through it. Oh yeah, Kelly, wearing white pants as well. Wearing white pants, you know, exactly what you would do if you had diarrhea. You would wear white pants, wouldn't you? Okay, so I don't hardly even know where to start here. I'd like to show you this video actually. What do I do? Gosh, I mean, it's so long. They've got these live. I may have to do it in two parts, but we'll see how we go. We see how we go because, as you can imagine, because the trial was so long, it has finished. The first day has finished, so I will look at that. But I'd like to show you. Oh, of course, it's disappeared as always. The BBC did an evidence review as to what she wants looking at, and I think it's quite interesting because it gives us a recap. Sorry, I'm mute. I would never do anything to them. I love them. And she was pretending to wipe away tears. But of course, there were no tears, not real ones, crocodile tears. Okay, let's have a look if I can share this. Just give us a recap of what she wants. Okay, you should be able to see that. So let me know if you can hear it. Okay. I think you should be able to.
Murderer isn't over yet. Remember this?
I'm devastated. I love them.
Patterson was arrested yesterday.
A woman accused of murdering 3 of her in-laws using poisonous mushrooms in a beef Wellington.
Guilty of 3 counts of murder and 1 of attempted murder.
This is the one story I've been asked most about covering in my career. Erin Patterson, the Australian woman who killed her in-laws and another relative after serving them a lunch of beef Wellington laced with toxic death cap mushrooms. Now, our team has been following this from the very beginning of the trial all the way through to sentencing, along with millions of people across the world fascinated by all the details. Now, she sat with her eyes closed for most of the time that the judge was talking, only opening them when he...
3 years.
That means Erin Patterson will be in her 80s before she has a chance to leave.
So let's not forget then the sentencing. So she was found guilty, and Justice Beale, he tried to sort of give her a break, I suppose, in a way. So he sentenced her to life imprisonment, but instead of sentencing her to life with no parole, he took a little bit of pity on her because he said that she would likely be in solitary confinement for all of those years. And so he would give her an opportunity at parole after 33 years. So at the same time that Erin is contesting her conviction or trying to, so let's not forget she's almost this is an appeal for the appeal. It's not the actual appeal itself. She's asking to be allowed to appeal. when she decided that, then the prosecution said, okay, if you're going to do that, we're appealing at the same time against the fact that you're entitled to parole after 33 years, because we think you should have got life without any chance of parole. And most of us were hoping for that. She's killed three people, elderly, vulnerable, trusting people that went round to her house. She sat and watched them eat a meal that she knew was going to kill them. I just think, God, what, did she kiss them goodbye? Did she give them a hug and a kiss? Say, oh, see you next week at church or whatever. You know, they prayed for her because she told them she had cancer. I think this is the most vile, or one of the most vile crimes that I've ever known, because of the callousness. Do you imagine? It's one thing to murder someone in the heat of passion, that's bad enough, but to actually sit at the table with them, watch them eat a meal that you've prepared, and you knowing exactly what that meal is going to kill them, watch them eating it, smile at them, chat with them, tell them how you've got cancer, they pray for you, say goodbye to them, give them a hug, give them a kiss. Oh, bye, adios. Knowing you're never going to see them alive again because you've just murdered them in slow motion. I mean, it's foul, isn't it? You've got to be a special sort of psychopath to do that. That's worse than just stabbing someone in the heat of passion, isn't it? You know, the planning, the coldness, the callousness. Just imagine us sort of sat watching them chewing their food, and don't forget, they said it was delicious. Don liked it so much, he ate his wife's share as well because she couldn't quite finish it all. But she still died, even though she could only eat half of it. I mean, there's not many more crimes worse than this. You know, 3 people, premeditated. And the only reason Ian is still alive is by the grace of God. Really, literally. Thank God he's still alive, not only for him, but for the fact that it meant he could give evidence against this horrible, horrible woman. She's like Lady Macbeth, but with bloody mushrooms, isn't she? Instead of a dagger. He's like, is this a mushroom I see before me? You know, and if it wasn't that it was real and so horrible, it's almost sort of comical, isn't it? Or not comical, that's not the right word, it's surreal. Killing death by beef Wellington is, you know, pretty unusual, isn't it?
Last year's trial took place in the small town of Morwell in regional Victoria. It's about 2 hours.
Important as well to say, she chose to have the trial there in this little town because she thought the jury would be the same as Gail and Don and Ian and Heather. Naive people who would believe this woman's shite that she talks. And she was wrong, because they might be quite naive. But you know what? They know what's right and what's wrong. But also now this is what part of what's causing the problem. Because in that tiny little town where this trial was held, there's only one hotel. So in that hotel, everybody was staying. So the jury, the prosecution, the defense, journalists, this is part of her appeal. That she says she did not get a fair trial because, you know, there's some sort of, what's the word, like tampering, you know, of the jury, you know, without everybody being together in the same hotel. Did she do that on purpose, I wonder?
I'm in the area talking to the community and spending days on end sitting in court listening to the evidence and Erin Patterson's testimony. There was so much interest in the case.
Our Sydney correspondent Katie Watson is outside the court in Morwell.
Katie, good to see you. This case is getting so much attention.
And as part of that coverage, I returned to the crime scene. The case centres around a lunch that took place here in July 2023. This is where Erin Patterson lived, and she'd invited her in-laws, Don and Gail Patterson, along with Gail's sister Heather Wilkinson and her husband Ian. The guests came along here together for a Saturday lunch of beef Wellington. But in that lunch, there were toxic death cap mushrooms. Within days, 3 of the 4 guests were dead. The 4th guest survived after spending weeks in hospital, and very quickly, Erin became the prime suspect.
I'm devastated. I love them. Just can't believe it.
Oh, you know what? She just, honest to God, this woman. Anyway, I hope this new judge sees through her, because the judge will decide if it goes to appeal or not.
In this appeal, we don't know exactly what Erin Patterson's barrister will say as to why her conviction should be overturned, but it's not hard to guess the direction in which they'll argue. In November, her team put together a series of points that form the basis of her appeal application, but that was done within weeks of her being sentenced in September, so things may well have changed since then. But let's go through the main points we expect them to argue. First, the mushrooms. Erin Patterson was accused of killing her relatives with mushrooms that she foraged in woodland about half an hour's drive from where the trial was taking place. One of the foraging locations suggested to the court was in this very street. Death cap mushrooms had been spotted right here. Now, that sighting was then posted onto a citizen science website, and mobile records then found Erin's phone had been in this area. But Erin Patterson's team argues that the evidence didn't prove she'd used the citizen science website to locate where death caps were growing, nor that she had definitely foraged for mushrooms in those areas. Introducing that evidence was at best irrelevant and at worst prejudicial, the lawyers say. Allowing it to go before the jury, they argue, caused a miscarriage of justice. And then the Facebook evidence from several women who formed a Facebook group that Erin Patterson was also a member of. It gave some insight into her state of mind and her views on her family, including her estranged husband, Simon. They included calling her family a lost cause and questioning whether they had any capacity for self-reflection at all. She accused her husband of gaslighting her and called him a deadbeat. Her lawyers argue that these interactions were at the very least irrelevant and would have prejudiced the jury, and so also shouldn't have formed part of the trial. Throughout the nearly 3 months of court proceedings, the jury was presented with a lot of evidence.
This CCTV footage showed Erin Patterson disposing of a dehydrator.
Yeah, disposing of the dehydrator that she'd never had. She told the police she'd never had a dehydrator, that she'd never foraged for mushrooms. And now she's saying, oh yeah, she was foraging for mushrooms all the time. It was just a big mistake. Well, she really does think people are stupid. I hope it's not, I hope the judge doesn't, make her be right in that, because this new judge, because you know what, if the judge decides that she can appeal, there's 2 possibilities. One is that the conviction could be quashed completely, which is unlikely, but it's possible. And the other one is a retrial. Imagine, how long that took, but it'd be a retrial with her deciding, what they can present and what they can't present. But don't forget that at the same time that this appeal is being requested, the prosecution are now saying, we're appealing as well. We want a sentence that doesn't include any opportunity for parole. So she may be in her 80s before she gets an opportunity for parole. But the prosecution, she's brought this on herself. The prosecution then are saying, right, we don't think there should be any opportunity for parole. So she may end up actually with a longer sentence. It all depends what the judge decides.
Which she'd used to prepare the mushrooms. The jury saw pictures of Patterson rocking up at the hospital, but refusing medical treatment despite having also eaten the lunch. And the court was shown police.
Yeah, so that there, where she was at the hospital, the nurse is trying to stop her. You could be dying because, you could be dying. And she's just there clicking the doors, just can't wait to get out because she wants to hide the evidence. So, well, I think what she said, Sarah, was she disposed of the dehydrators because she was scared that they would think it was her. So I think in the end she said, oh yeah, I did do. Well, she couldn't deny disposing of the dehydrator because she was fucking on camera. So she couldn't say, oh no, that wasn't me. I mean, it was obviously clearly her. But what she said was she just got scared. Oh, come on, please tell me this judge isn't going to believe this shite.
Of Patterson rocking up at the hospital, but
She's
and the court was
believing.
shown police at Patterson's home, as well as interviewing her in a police station where she lied again and again.
Obviously, we've got concerns in relation to the mushrooms and where they've come from. Is that something you've done in the past, foraging for the mushrooms or anything like that?
No.
Never.
But in this appeal, her team say that the judge made a mistake in not allowing us evidence some photos and video related to mushrooms found on a memory card at home. Her team say that they wanted to show the jury this evidence because it would have shown a long and innocent history of foraging for mushrooms and would have backed up her argument that the poisoning was a terrible mistake. And by not allowing this evidence in, that, say the lawyers, was a miscarriage of justice. As part of the trial, Erin Patterson herself gave evidence. She was in the witness box for 8 days, and there were queues of people coming to watch her. Nanette Rogers led the prosecution.
Yeah, do you remember that? 8 days you had to listen to the shit coming out of her mouth. She was the only witness for the defence. And everything she said, this prosecutor, who was a brilliant prosecutor, she found out the truth, because what did she say first of all, Erin? That really she wanted a gastric band, but she was too embarrassed to tell the family she wanted a gastric band. So instead she said she had cancer. And then when they went to the place where she said she had an appointment for a gastric band, they didn't do gastric band surgery, it turned out. She was Nanette caught her out in every lie she told. She was a brilliant prosecutor. So,
and she cross-examined her. Erin Patterson's lawyers say it was unfair and oppressive. Now, during that time, we heard more about the relationship between Erin Patterson and her husband Simon and how it had broken down in the years before the fateful meal. In fact, he'd been asked to that lunch and a beef Wellington had been prepared for him, but he felt uncomfortable turning up. In order to shield the jury from media coverage and the opinions of friends and family, when they were reaching the verdict, they weren't allowed to go home. So during the day, they would deliberate in court. In the evenings, they would go and stay in a local hotel. And in the hotel where the jurors were, it turned out that there were members of the prosecution team, a key witness, and some journalists. There's no suggestion that the jurors spoke to anybody, but it was an embarrassing gaffe. And Erin Patterson's lawyers argue that it fatally undermined the integrity of the verdict and there needs to be a retrial. But that's not all. In the same hearing, the prosecution is also appealing. If you remember, Erin Patterson was told she had to spend 33 years in prison before being considered for parole. But the Director of Public Prosecutions in Victoria says the sentence is manifestly inadequate, arguing she shouldn't be considered for parole. The triple murderer should never be freed. We won't know the outcome of this appeal immediately. These decisions can take months. So the story of Australia's notorious
months, possibly. Awful. Anyway, that's a bit of background there. In that video. Oh, I thought I'd turn myself off then. Okay, so what we're going to have a look at now is the actual progress. We're going to have a look at the actual progress today. So there's been court hearing today. Let's have a look. I'm going on the BBC website this time. Now, I do think one thing that's worrying me a little bit is this thing about the hotel. But then what other hotel could they stay in? Haven't they? Wouldn't they have to prove I don't know. Thursday, I'll go back to the beginning. A 2-day hearing. So, going to our live coverage of Erin Patterson's appeal hearing in Melbourne. I don't know if that's sharing, just let me check. Oh. Yeah, there you go. The Australian triple murderers case has attracted unprecedented attention at every turn, and today is no different. The 51-year-old has always maintained she accidentally included poisonous mushrooms in the beef Wellington she cooked for her estranged husband's relatives in 2023, a meal which left 3 of them dead and another in a coma. Patterson's legal team is arguing there was a substantial miscarriage of justice at her trial and her conviction should be overturned, but we'll also hear from the prosecution who say that the sentence was imposed by the judge was manifestly inadequate. So there you go. We've got previous court drawing of her. So for 2 years, the mystery of exactly what happened at Erin's house, dining table, gripped the world. 5 people sat down to eat lunch at her home in rural Australia on 29th of July, 2023. Oh, bless, it's just gone the anniversary, hasn't it? Within a week, 3 would be dead, a 4th would be fighting for his life, and the 5th would be under investigation for intentionally poisoning her guests with wild mushrooms. Erin Patterson, a self-described mushroom lover. Somebody said at the time, she actually looks a bit like a mushroom, doesn't she? She put a lot of us off mushrooms. I've never gone right full back on mushrooms, to be honest. An amateur forager had told the court it was all a tragic accident. She didn't mean to kill her estranged husband's relatives. But over 9 weeks, the jury heard evidence suggesting she had foraged death cap mushrooms sighted in nearby towns and had lured her victims to the fatal meal under the false pretense she had cancer, before trying to conceal her crimes by lying to police and disposing of evidence. Yeah, and that's what makes this case especially heinous. She did lure them there. She tried to make them feel sorry for her, got them to pray for her. She doesn't even believe in God, supposedly. She was an atheist. She ridiculed them because they believed in God. And she had them praying for her, and she didn't even have cancer. You know, she'll probably get cancer. You know, that the ideal karma for Erin would be that she gets cancer, wouldn't it? Oh, and the other thing we mustn't forget, don't forget she was thinking of training to be a midwife. She just, the shades of Lucy Letby, Beverly Allitt with Erin. I think she liked having the power of life and death in her hands. Some people do, much as you can't get your head around it. Imagine her as a midwife. Oh my God. So she's trying to get her convicted. So there are two appeals taking place. Firstly, Patterson is trying to get her convictions overturned, claiming there were several reasons a substantial miscarriage of justice had occurred at her trial. So there are three categories: problems with evidence, actions of the prosecution, and an unusual snafu with the jury. At the same time, so on the other hand, prosecutors will also be appealing against her sentence. And the judge said that Patterson could apply for parole after 33 years, swayed by the harsh prison conditions she would likely face. Oh God, it makes me so angry that I don't give a shit about her. They're not going to be that harsh, are they? They're not as harsh as being dead of death cap mushrooms. You know, those three people who died and the one who survived, Ian, they went through agony. It wasn't, just an instant death. It was suffering, it was pain, it was going into a coma. It was a horrible death. So the prosecution says that it's manifestly inadequate. The triple murderer should never be freed. So here we've got the family tree. Got Don, who died, his wife Gail, her estranged husband's parents. Then Heather Wilkinson is Gail's sister. And don't forget, because Erin has 2 children. That's the only time she got emotional at her trial, when she was talking about her children. But if you ask me, I think her children have had a lucky escape. What will happen later on in life when the children start to get on her nerves? Is that what Erin does to people who gets on her nerves? Poisons them. Do you know, she might love them now, but what about when they're teenagers, or when they turn against her, or whatever? You imagine living in a house with Erin, you couldn't eat anything she put in front of you, could you? So we know who the victims are. This is a little map, if you like. You've got Australia, Morwell here. Leongatha is where she lived at the trial was held. So she's not in the room for this appeals hearing. She's watching via video link from the Dame Phyllis Frost Centre, which is a maximum security women's prison in the western suburbs of the city. I might have a little look at that in a future video. So she's not in court this time. So yeah, people were always going on about, well, what was the motive? Sometimes spite is the only motive for someone. Because sometimes a motive, sometimes there's a clear motive, obviously. Sometimes there's not. Sometimes people murder people just out of spite. I think that's why Erin did it. It was control, it was spite. She was annoyed with the family because they weren't sticking up for her enough, and she'd borrowed the money. She's Erin Moneybags, Queen Bee. She liked to be the Queen Bee. And when she felt like her power was slipping, that's why she did it. It was like, I'll teach you. That is literally why I think she did it. And I know people who are like that, spiteful. They like to be in control. They pretend to help you, they borrow your money and pretend to be helpful. But really, it's just a way of putting the screws on you. So, Patterson's legal team say she did not receive a fair trial, and a 3-page document filed last year hints at the arguments they'll make today. Bits of evidence the jurors shouldn't have seen, and others from their own case which were excluded. The defence also say the prosecution was inconsistent on their evidence for a motive, and that the 5 days of cross-examination of their client was unfair and oppressive on the stand. And finally, they say the jury was deliberating, which fatally undermined the integrity of the verdicts. The jurors were supposed to be isolated, but in that little town of Morwell meant they shared a hotel with members of the prosecution, a key police witness, and journalists, although there is no evidence that they interacted with them. So let's see. I'm going to try and... So Ian turned up at the hearing. Ian was there, and he was sitting alongside Stephen Ecclestone, who was in charge of the police investigation. Poor judges that will decide this case: Stephen McLeish, Leslie Taylor and Peter Kidd. These are the 3 judges hearing the case in Melbourne today and tomorrow. They had no involvement with the trial, and it will be up to them to decide whether or not the appeals, both the appeals by Erin Patterson and the public prosecutor, are successful. And if they can't all agree, the case will be decided by a majority vote 2-1, and so the opinion of the 2 agreeing judges becomes the final order of the court. Okay, so they started off. The Erin's legal team has began voicing its arguments. The jurors were supposed to be isolated, but accommodation shortages meant they shared a hotel with members of the prosecution, a key police witness and journalist. So Patterson's barrister Richard Edney said this undermined the integrity of the verdicts and requires the quashing of the convictions. He says a retrial is required. So, but he does concede there's no evidence that jurors had any interaction with the prosecution team or the key witness, but he still says the accommodation bungle was catastrophic, and the judges were trying to find out why he thinks that. So the judges asked if they did view or see the practitioners. So what? Is there any evidence there's been a breach of the communication embargo? So I don't think there has. So the thing is, I'm not going to read out every little thing. So these were the original. This is the prosecution barrister. She was very good, wasn't she? And then Colin Mandy, the defence barrister, he literally, he seemed to give up halfway because he knew he was fighting a losing battle. You almost felt like he knew she was guilty. You know, that's how it felt. But Nanette, she was very good. Let's see here. The oath jurors are discussing. So the oath jurors take only bars them from discussing the case with others, Justice Leslie Taylor says. So yeah, what they're saying there is the trial judge, which was Christopher Beale, wasn't it? He knew they were all staying at the same hotel. So if he felt, I mean, maybe he should have stopped them all staying at the hotel, but there wasn't another hotel. Right. So, seems like there's some conversation or there was some conversation going backwards and forwards, where the defence lawyer Edney had said it was catastrophic, but one of the judges challenged that and said maybe it wasn't quite catastrophic. So he said this was a serious breach of sequestration. But there is no evidence that they did interact in any way. So she was not in court, of course. She is watching from a video link. Oh, now another thing was the Facebook messages. And what the defence is saying, that those Facebook messages where she criticised her extended family shouldn't have been allowed to have been presented. What else got? Oh, yeah, we've got a summary here. That might be better. Let's see. Well, let's just watch this video.
Following eating in your house, Donald, Ian, Gail, and Heather all become so ill that they ultimately ended up in the intensive care unit. What had convinced me you're that in? You've done it. Do you know anything about a dehydrator in your house? Or okay. Do you own a dehydrator?
No.
You've described to me relationship with your ex-partner Simon. Right. I'd like to understand why you had his parents and his uncle and auntie over for lunch.
Because I've got no other family, so they're the only support I've got. I think Simon hated that I still had a relationship with his parents. But I loved them. And then a doctor came out, Dr. Webster, and, oh, what's your name? And I said, Erin. And he said, oh, we've been expecting you because other people that you ate with on Saturday were sick. But he said something along the lines of,
So yeah, and now the thing is, so she won't appear and give evidence in these appeals. Relatives with deadly mushrooms concealed in a beef Wellington lunch. Her lawyers are appealing her sentence, arguing there was a substantial miscarriage of justice. The jury accidentally stayed at the same hotel as prosecutors, and a key police witness, which Patterson's lawyers today said was catastrophic to the integrity of the trial, but prosecutors pushed back against this claim, saying there was no evidence of interaction between the jurors and those guests. And in the meantime, the prosecution is mounting its own appeal, arguing that Patterson should not be eligible for parole. Anyway, that's more or less what's happened today. There's another day tomorrow that I'll be covering. And And yeah, of course, as always, what do you think? You know, what do you think of it all? Do you think she's successful in this appeal? Does she deserve to be successful? Personally, I think it's an insult to the victims. Just typical of Erin's callousness. But, you know, maybe she's just trying everything she can. Nobody, I suppose, wants to go to prison for the rest of their life. Yeah. So we see, so we've got 3 judges who will decide. 1, can Erin appeal? Because don't forget, this is not, she's not being told she can appeal. This is to decide if she has the right to appeal. And if she has the right to appeal, that will result in either a retrial, you know, a quashing of the convictions completely in a retrial. And then at the same time, the prosecution are appealing for a longer sentence without the right to parole ever. As it stands at the moment, she's 51. She's been sentenced to life for a minimum of 33 years. So she's going to be in her 80s before she can apply for parole. And there's no guarantee she'll get it, of course. But it could end up that because she's made this appeal and the prosecution are now appealing against her having any right to parole, it could be that she ends up never coming out of prison. And to be honest, that's what a lot of us thought the sentence should have been in the first place. You killed 3 people. Let's not forget, she has been found guilty of murdering 3 people callously, premeditatively. You know, there's no extenuating circumstances whatsoever, for no other reason than spite. You know, she was annoyed because they weren't going along with what she thought. And if she could have killed Ian, she would have. And just lucky for Ian, but also for the case, that Ian survived because he could give this evidence, you know, of her live cancer, make all pray for her, having different colour plates. Don't forget, the plates bugged me for ages. We don't know what happened to those plates. They were all given grey plates, and Ian testified that Erin had a different colour plate. Funny that, isn't it? Just to make sure she didn't poison herself. And then let's not forget, after these poor people were dead or dying, she didn't even want to take her children to the hospital, even though the children had eaten leftovers. Because she knew they hadn't had any of it, because she made sure only they got the death cap mushrooms, not her children. That's why she didn't bother taking them to the hospital either, and she wasn't interested in staying at the hospital because there was nothing wrong with her. She tried to pretend she had diarrhea, didn't she? You know, she was trying to concoct this ridiculous story. Anyway, let's hope the 3 judges, let's hope they all see through her. That's all we can hope for. And she has rejected this chance to appeal. And my hope will be that not only she's rejected the opportunity to appeal, but then the prosecution appeal and for a longer sentence is upheld, and she ends up with life without the opportunity for parole. You murder 3 people, 3 very innocent, very naive, nice people who only cared about you, tried to help you. You murder them in cold blood like that. You deserve life without parole. She's lucky they haven't got the death penalty. So, okay, I've got to go. So I've got, sadly, a funeral to participate in virtually, my sister-in-law's funeral. And as I say, I hope that's the end of bad news for this year. Yeah, you know, do you know what I mean? Life hangs on such a thread. It just, you know, just in normal life, never mind when you a woman like her plotting to kill these poor people. It's terrible. You know, I really feel for these, for Ian. He's the last one left. He's lost his wife. He's lost his good friends, Don and Gail. He's been ill. You know, he had to have a transplant. He's only I mean, he looks quite hale and hearty now, bless him. Hope he is. And I hope he's finding a way, you know, that he's found some peace and he's finding a way to cope with what happened to him. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for caring about all these people. You know, the victims are always the most important people, aren't they? I'll be back really soon in the next video. I'll be back to normal now, hopefully. After my lovely birthday weekend, I did enjoy it. Thank you so much for all your positive thoughts. You know, I'm just overwhelmed. Thank you. I had a lovely time. I really did. And it was so nice because it has been pretty much a shit year. But not only for me, for a lot of people. So, you know, just nice. It's funny life, isn't it? Because, yeah, you can't be deliriously happy all the time. But sometimes you just get moments that are so nice and so happy. And that's how my birthday was. It really was. And then, of course, you do get moments that are terrible as well. You know, but it's like, that's the way it is, isn't it? So we just keep going. One foot in front of the other. Get up every morning, you put a smile on your face and you cope with whatever life's got to throw at you. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. And support each other, isn't it? That's what we do. Thank you. I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you. Bye.